all the way from Italy to provide us with promising frameworks, Francesca Bria.
Yeah, he's getting here. Hello, hi. Sorry, I didn't bring the Italian weather, but I did bring myself here. So it's great to be here at this festival. And I think everyone that's here believes in the power of imagination to transform reality. And I think we can imagine Europe as a planetary laboratory to rethink, redesign, and reconstruct the future. I do need my the thing to change the slides. Okay, fantastic, yeah. And if Europe is a planetary laboratory, this will help us to move towards a circular, low-carbon economy, which is what we have to do, harnessing the power of green technology, collective intelligence and digitization, and ethical investment to do that. So why do we need a radical change and a radical shift today? And I think you heard it also in the previous panel and also before. We live in a polycrisis. This is a time of multiple interconnected crises. We feel them every day. So we have exponential growth in the price of energy. We do have extreme weather events this summer with a climate emergency. We have immigration crisis. We have global supply chain disruption, also due to global conflicts and a war at the center of Europe. We have technology speed acceleration, technological development, but also supply chain disruption and decoupling in technology. We have all these things happening together. And this is, of course, putting a lot of pressure on how do we decide to move forward, what kind of decision we take, and how we can transform reality and the economy moving forward, not only accelerating what we do, but giving a direction to technological transformation and change towards more ecological and environmental sustainability. So after the Second World War, humanity went through a process of great acceleration. And this meant exponential growth in material use, exponential growth in resources usage, and we started moving, of course, pollution and energy conversion, and we started moving with accelerating this development towards a form of globalization, a type of globalization that we live today, which is based on an unsustainable mass consumption and mass production model. And so we are here with a form of capitalism that we do need to transform. And at the very core of this industrial model, of this capitalist model, there is, of course, the question of how do we transform it towards a climate neutral, more circular economy, which implies this great transformation. So do you remember the Limit Through Growth report? This was written 50 years ago by a group of scientists and MIT researchers. And they were alerting us. I mean, they were saying, of course, they couldn't predict about the future, for example, of some transformation that the other speakers thought about before. For example, we're going to move to green technologies with green hydrogen. Of course, supply chain problems will be there. Raw material shortages will be there. But we are going to have maybe electric cars. We're going to have green hydrogen. We're going to have massive renewable technologies and energy in the system. They couldn't predict that, but they could say something very simple and very powerful, that the fossil fuel system, this growth model was obsolete. It was over. And then we understood that, we have to basically change the entire economic system, the entire system of growth in order to go to the very core of the problem. So this is not only about climate change. This is not only a change in terms of environmental sustainability, but this is a change in terms of our value creation and economic model in general, as I keep saying. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Mariana Mazzucato. She's a dynamic economist, and she's thinking about changing the value creation paradigm. And she's saying we need to give a direction to growth, and this direction of growth should be, of course, enlightened by the Sustainable Development Goals, but also we can co-create, we can co-shape markets. So we can't have markets that work by their own, like we have heard many years in neoliberal economic approaches, but we can have markets that really work for the people. So we can shape and co-create markets. I mean, in my work, even with the National Italian Innovation Fund, this is a very important approach. And of course, this kind of big change, as it was said also before, it's already happening. And it is happening in the European Green Deal. So the European Green Deal is Europe plan, is Europe new economic model, new growth model, we should say. And is an economic model where we no longer take from nature, but we give back to nature. And yes, we can only do that to hold the Paris line. And also, of course, if you see at the big economic model where we need to massively decarbonize if we want to be carbon neutral by 2050 and 55% lower emissions, I mean, by 2030, I mean, this is really now, and that's why all our cities, all our regions, territories, industries are mobilizing. Of course, we cannot only draining carbon sources by 2050, protecting the natural carbon sinks and our planetary commons, forests, wetlands, Antarctica, the global commons, but we need to create new carbon sinks. So we need to create managed carbon sinks. For example, carbon farming, but also cities. Cities can become new carbon sinks. So building green cities, building ecological cities, pedestrian cities, electric bicycle cities. So in order to do that, we need to take all the carbon that's been released since the Industrial Revolution out of the atmosphere, creating more carbon sinks, so not only carbon neutral, but carbon positive, moving from a dumb, linear petro economy into a smart circular bioeconomy. I think everyone is talking about it here at this festival. Also, when I saw all the products and everything that the startups and the companies are proposing here, it's about that, moving towards this circular bioeconomy model. Now, I'm working for the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in a high-level roundtable when she said, Europe has the Green Deal, but this cannot just be a top-down legal approach. We have a climate law, we are fighting in Parliament to put these requirements on paper in a law to be binding for regulation for the industry, but this is not going to happen without a movement, without every single one of us being mobilized. And she saw the possibility of the power of combining and creating a fusion between science, technology, the arts, and architecture. And this is what the Bauhaus, previously in the 1930s, at the end of 1920s, between the two world wars, have done, actually merging the architecture with sustainability. I mean, with a new ecological idea. And this was done a long time ago, changing the paradigm about education and changing the paradigm about how we produce. And the big elephant in the climate room is the built environment. So if we don't change the built environment, we are not going to make this big change because it's 45% of emissions is the built environment. So bio-based materials, creating new carbon sinks, and we have to change the way we use material massively. So the new European Bauhaus is becoming a big movement. We have 1,000 partners all around Europe with thousands laboratories, also including design schools, architecture schools, artists, technology experts, climate scientists, of course, as some of them are in the UN IPCC, the ones that are creating all this projection about the climate. And we have been investing 100 million only last year, and now projecting other 100 million for the next years to do this kind of change. There are prizes for people that participate, there are lighthouses, new kind of projects that have to be impact on the ground. So in cities, in your neighborhood, activating communities, but bringing together science, technology, the arts, architecture, and education. So this is Barcelona. I used to be the Chief Technology Officer of the city of Barcelona. And I think Barcelona shows how this vision can become. Those are superblocks. That's how we call them in Barcelona. And we removed 60% of the cars from the city center. So now those blocks are ecological, self-sustaining neighborhood, green neighborhood, 10% of more green areas, electric bicycles, changing the paradigm of mobility, and of course, much less emission. So this is the Barcelona Superblocks, which can become a model that can be replicated all around Europe and beyond. And this revolution, it was said before, can only be done if we believe that data, the data that we produce all the time, is a key infrastructure for the future. The data will help us to measure pollution, to measure how much water we are consuming, also how much energy we are consuming, how about the traffic, the air we breathe. We can use data as a common good. But the data that we produce cannot only be in the hands of few tech companies, big tech companies. I don't know if you know the book of Shoshana Zuboff about surveillance capitalism. So she said this is the new economic model. With our data, we're being surveilled and our data is sold. Why don't we get the data back in the public interest to take better decisions and changing our city for the better? I think all these different ideas, but in particular, ecological transformation and digitization with power to the people is coming together in a project that Europe is doing in Sevilla, where we are creating a Center for Algorithmic Transparency to regulate artificial intelligence, try to bring data and artificial intelligence, giving the power to the people, to small companies in order to innovate for the public interest, and at the same time becoming carbon neutral, carbon positive, energy positive, and this is happening now, being built in the spirit of the new European Bauhaus in Sevilla. So finally, in my investment world, also this is a panel about finance, I run a 5 billion fund where we try to foster the startup and scale-up ecosystem in Italy. And we work also at the European level, because we do have to create a line, all this discussion about the climate and sustainability, where we put the money. And we have to teach investors that we have to be courageous where we invest in actually groundbreaking technologies. So Europe is creating a European deep tech ecosystem in healthcare technology, clean tech, space technology, med tech, renewable energy, which I think it's going to make the difference. And we have 3.5 billion fund of funds, which is managed by the European Investment Fund, that will leverage 10 billion funds for the deep tech ecosystem. This also links company to universities, research centers, and possibly also communities that get involved. And my final slide is that we can only do all this big transformation if we engage people and citizens. So I'm a strong believer of collective intelligence for democracy. When I was in Barcelona, we ran the largest participatory democracy experiment in the world. 400,000 citizens took their voice, using also online and offline platform. 70% of the actions that became the policy of the city of Barcelona came directly from citizens. So I think the key is not only to transform value in the economic model, but to really give back power to the people. So engaging communities and engaging citizens. And after all, Europe should be the laboratory of a planetary transformation, but also done in a democratic way. Thank you very much.
Wow, Francesca. Thank you so much for your energy. I really like this name of the new European Bauhaus. Can you elaborate on this? How you came to that name?
So not everybody likes that name because they saw it a bit, am I allowed to say a bit German? Because of the new European Bauhaus was born, the Bauhaus was born in Germany. I think it's very powerful because the Bauhaus had an idea about architecture that was almost mystical. So they never were really working on architecture, but they had at the center education, the arts, and culture. And I really believe that the key to all of this, if you want to transform the built environment, materials, the economy, it's do it through culture. So we need to mobilize also artists, creative people. I mean, that's why I came here to this festival. Yeah. And I think that was the intention. It's the first time, I think, that the European Commission president says we need a cultural movement in order to achieve the Green Deal. And that's what I love about this project.
And that's also the analogy with the Bauhaus as we knew it. Thank you very much. Give her a warm hand, Francesca Bria. Thanks for your energy.